Welcome back, friends. Fuzzy camera, apparently, because Kirby's here. Whatever. It's a fuzzy day. You should be listening to me anyway, not looking at me. You should listen. Speaking of fuzzy, by the way, I just realized. Um, the main thing I want to talk about this vlog, because I thought it was a cool line, but now I'm going to deliver it poorly, and that is, you ever just see something and you're just like, I gotta do something, but then you don't because life teaches you to not help anyone? Like, you're taught, like, let me do this way. Okay, so at work, some sort of mating season happened because there were caterpillars everywhere. These big black and fuzzy with orange kind of body caterpillars everywhere. Everywhere. The thing is, my facility, of course, is very concrete, so they're just going everywhere in this concrete, and, it ain't gonna go well for them because it's just all concrete. And also, sometimes you just see things that are surprising. Like, caterpillars can just climb onto things that should not support their weight, and yet they can. I saw a caterpillar climb onto a spider web, and then unfortunately they tripped, and then they fell into the spider web, and they were just stuck there. They were 10 times the size of the spider that took them out. It was kind of crazy to look. I was just surprised to see them. Like, they're that big and they can't break out of that web. I didn't know webs were that strong. Spider webs are hella strong, guys. I didn't realize that. You like to think, like, you got stuck in a web, you'd just be too big and strong, you would get out. But no, apparently they're just really strong. Like, if spider webs were proportional to our size, we wouldn't be able to get out. Like, the movies would be right, apparently, with that. It's crazy. Just crazy. Freaking crazy. And so, I just saw that. I'm like, wow. And so, it's because, like, with that one, I was like, okay, what can I do? Like, well, if you save the caterpillar, then the spider dies of starvation. Kind of thing. And so, in that moral quandary, I was like, all right, you let nature run its course there. The spider got their meal there. Good for the spider. And if you've ever seen Trigun, you see where I stand with that then. Because I was thinking about that, because me and Jinx have seen Trigun, so we're talking about that. By the way, have not seen the newer version, Trigun Stampede. I don't know, just haven't been interested. Despite being a fan of Trigun, just haven't been interested in this version of it. I think its season's about to end too, so I really want to see it. I just haven't been interested. So, talking about these caterpillars. So, weeks go by, and there's less and less caterpillars because they die for various reasons. And there's a point when there's just, like, so there's an underground area where I assume the caterpillars go there because it's warmer there. But there's nothing for them to eat, and there's nothing for them to drink. So it's just the grave of the caterpillars. Just tons and tons of caterpillar dead bodies underground. And inside, I keep going, I really want to move these guys, but I guess I'm supposed to let nature run its course. I've been placated by that thought. And then I'm like, fudge it, I am nature. I'm going to run the damn course. And so I've been taking these caterpillars out of this underground area, the survivors, and I'm still surprised anything survives down there. There's nothing there to eat. They eat leaves. There's no leaves down there. There's no sunlight. We are many, many feet underground in this facility. And so I take them whenever I find them crawling around, the ones that have somehow survived, and I take them outside. I walk quite a bit to deliver these guys to some freaking greenery, and I feel heartened because I see them surviving weeks later now, and they're just in these greener areas and alive. I'm like, well, they have a chance with spiders and other things, but and of course birds, but it's better than being underground and just starving to death. Like, it's chance of dying versus guaranteed death, basically. And so I'm like, all right, I'm part of nature. Humanity has effed nature pretty much with all these concrete buildings, so I can also move them out of the concrete buildings. Like, I'm not part of this whole thing. Humanity likes to act like we're not part of nature. We're an observer of nature. It's like, no, we're part of it. We effed it up. We can also make it less effed up. That's what we can do. And so that's what I did. And this little thing, moving caterpillars. By the way, these caterpillars are apparently gonna become giant moths. Like, I mean, the kind that can be on your that can just sit on your hand. Giant moths, what these guys are gonna become. It takes them months to get big enough to become moths, though. But they get really big. These guys are getting really big. Just watching them in the grass, they're becoming big boys, and it's just crazy to see how big they are. And they can hang on a blade of grass. Like, they're definitely heavier than that blade of grass, from what I can tell. I guess not, because physics, but it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Crazy. You ever just speaking of work, you ever just worry about people and just how they lose knowledge over time? Like, we become depositories of knowledge and experience, but we also just forget stuff. And my boss is like, there's like a water tower at work, like in the lake. Like, every lake, every reservoir in America and most of the world has a tower in it that has a level in there with exact measurements so that you can see what the height of the water is. So, like, is it 130 feet, 131 feet, etc.? And there's little notches in the tower for just be more exact about it. So, our tower has 20 notches, or I guess 19 notches between every major line for feet. So, they're trying to figure out what would the breakdown be. And I'm like, it's just 0.05 per notch, guys. That's all it is, because there's 20 of them. But I just stood there and watched and listened to them try to figure this out for a while, because I'm like, well, literally not my job to tell them what's the right thing unless they ask me, because that's how work works. You listen and speak when told, because they never appreciate when you just give them the answer, because they want to figure it out sometimes. I don't know. Or you just need them to understand, not understand, but just like, you're not supposed to chime in. You're just supposed to let your boss mess up until they ask you for help, kind of thing. That has been what I've learned and what I'm supposed to do. So I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna watch them fail for a while, and then they ask me, like, okay, so it's like this. It's just 0.05, guys. They at one point were like, oh, each notch must mean like half an inch, because 12 inches is a foot. I'm like, sure? If there were 12 notches, or 24 notches, but we're talking 20 notches. What's the easiest thing to infer from that? Has gotta be just its feet and percentage of, and just decimals of feet, not inches to feet. Wait, it could have been that, like, if it was 12 notches, you could infer that, but it's 20. You can't infer that from 20 notches. Just can't. It was just so crazy to me. Because one boss was like, oh, so it's just 0.08 a notch, right? It was like just trying to, like, divide a foot by 20, I guess, but into inches. Like, this is all insanity. This is all insanity. Also, I don't know if it's 0.08 anyway, but I was just like, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. I'm like, look, it's 0.05 per notch. So when you get to 5 notches, it's 0.25. When you get to 10 notches, it is 0.5, and so on. And just, it was just crazy. Just crazy to me. Crazy. Oh my god, I can't believe I went for 10 minutes talking about just those two things. Is there anything else to talk about really quick here? Oh, you know, March is ridiculous because a ton of Kirby games came out in March. So there's all these anniversaries. Tomorrow is, or whenever this comes out, tomorrow is, I'm recording Friday night, so the 25th is Kirby's Forgotten Land, and I need to draw an anniversary image for that, because I should, because I've been wanting to draw an image for Forgotten Land. Now I'm just gonna freaking draw it already. No problem with being a creative person who just doesn't have one single passion. You try to do everything, you end up just not being great at anything. Jack of all trades is a master of none, of course, is true. It's very true. But I don't know, I like doing all these things. At the end of the day, my mastery is, I guess, at this, at content creation, I suppose, but just not very good at it. We probably could have gotten better, like studying analytics and, like, I don't know, better. I don't know. I think Jinx has amazing titles. I think we could have been more clickbaity, maybe. That's the way to go. Clickbait works as much as I hate clickbait. Like, I anti clickbait. If I see clickbait, I just don't click on it. I will never see that video. I will never know what that's about. Because I just don't care for clickbait. I hate how popular clickbait is, but it exists because it works. And like, we could have been more popular if we did more clickbaity thumbnails and more clickbaity titles, but I like the jokes Jinx does with the titles. And it's a lot less work if you just have one solid thumbnail for your content, of course. Like, it's usually, of course, like the title screen for the game or whatever. Like, just studying analytics, studying when's the best time to put things up, what was the best game to play, what would be the best game to play at the time, things like that. Instead, of course, we just do what we enjoy, what we want to do. And also just toughing out when I have like bad experiences, like that's something I could have worked on professionally, is just being better at that when we were doing other content. And I don't know, of course, the other passion would be like collabing and just advertising more and more and more and more. Like becoming cars, becoming a signal in the noise kind of thing, just getting better at that. Like, there are people who just study that stuff and they're successful because they study it really well and figure out how to utilize it. Well, we've never been very good at studying and figuring out analytics and stuff like that. Especially when tags were a thing and when tags mattered. I actually don't know if tags mattered ever since we've been doing this, but there was a time when tags were very important. And tags would get you found by the bots, by the spiders and all that, but not so much these days. Like, they've done away with tags. I don't even know how the algorithm works. Well, no one knows how the algorithm works. Everyone's trying to figure out how that works. Like, someday, maybe, one of our videos could just get tons of views long after we've been done doing whatever with that. Like, that randomly can happen. That randomly happens to people. And it's just, no one knows how the algorithm works. The people who can figure it out, they do better. I don't know, I just have fun drawing every now and then. I have fun other creative things. I haven't written in so many years. Like, I used to have fun writing. I have all these stories in me that I still want to write that I just haven't written. I just haven't taken the time to it. Because I've just really, of course, enjoyed most of my time gaming and making, well, content for this, like making the podcast and things like that, and playing Kirby and things like that. There's a time when I was thinking about like looking into making music too, like those DJ programs, because that seemed like a fun idea to do, and doing remixes seemed like a fun idea. Thankfully, I never did that because, oh my god, is that another thing I just wouldn't do much in. Creative as well. It's like, I got that violin. I haven't played that violin in months. Well, part of it was the wrist injury from the car accident. That's one part of the reason why I haven't messed with the violin. I guess back about just, yeah, humanity and nature. Is like, we are part of nature. It's weird when people are like, no, we're not animals. Like, no, we literally are animals, guys. Like, yeah, we're animals. We're not like at the level that other animals are, but we are animals. Like, that's literally the kingdom we're in, guys. I don't know. I actually find it naive to try to separate humanity from the rest of nature. I find that naive because we're part of it. We've affected nature greatly. You know, at some point I also realized how life works and things like that. Like, just smaller life forms to bigger life forms. Like, everything is the accumulation of like mass to bigger and bigger things when it comes to living creatures. Like, just the bigger creatures eat the smaller creatures, and so on and so forth. And then some big creatures eat each other, but it's, predators and prey and things like that. But it's the prey are eating the things the predators don't eat, and the predators get the nutrient from the prey, and it's just matter recycling. But we're kind of effing it with plastics. Plastics are really screwing everything up for everyone, and it does worry me with that. Unless, of course, everyone evolves to digest plastic. There is bacteria that can digest plastic now, which is a very necessary. Because, like, at the smallest level, like detritus and, like, trash or whatever, like, there's bacteria and insects and other things that just tear that stuff apart and recycle that back into, like, living mass. Like, you ever think about that? Like, what do insects eat? They eat, like, little things. Like, they eat plants, but they also eat just whatever random crap is on the ground. And so it's a way of them just building that stuff back up. Like, go with the sea. Like, shrimp are eating, like, the detritus at the bottom of the sea. They're eating, like, whatever random crap down there. And then the shrimp get eaten by fish and other creatures, like whales and all, whatever, and crabs and all that. And then things eat those creatures, and things eat those creatures. And, of course, we eat fish, we eat crab, we eat shrimp. So, like, these things are eating, like, the bottom of the sea, and then we eat these creatures, and so that just elevates the... Oh, I sound so weird the way I'm trying to explain this. Trying to explain is the circle of life is real. Or just small things go to get consumed by bigger things, and of course, eventually the circle with us goes back in a way. Like, dead things get eaten, and then those things get eaten, those things get eaten, those things get eaten, and then the bigger things die, and then they get eaten, and so on and so forth. I just realized, like, the Lion King explains it really well. Right? Like, Mufasa's like, alright, so we got the whatever, the antelope or whatever. They eat the grass. Then we eat the antelope. And then we die and we become the grass. And then so on and so forth. There's a circle of life. The antelope eat the grass. Also, dead antelope become grass as well. So they get eaten too. Circle of life. Easier explained by Disney, of course. I'm just thinking about that. Just thinking that, like, I don't want to think about it too much because, death is, annoying to think about. But just, and that's also part of why I'm okay with meat eating. Like, at the end of the day, if we could have where nothing dies, that'd be great. But the thing is, plants die too. Like, everything dies. We just can't hear broccoli scream when we steam it. That's it, or when you cut it first. Everything is consumed. Life consumes life. That's how it is. Life kills life to continue life. That's how it works. And so I think about just, someday I'm going to go down and worms and other things will consume me. And so I do find interesting the concept of where people do the seeds, like, they make it where their grave somehow turns into a tree, and that's kind of cool. Like, you just become a tree. And here's the thing is just, we're constantly growing and shedding. So, also shitting. Like, our skin cells are coming off every day, and that's being eaten by whatever, and that gets going, so on and so forth, get eating, and up and up and up and up. That's happening. We go to the bathroom stuff, and that's, of course, more of our organics going out there getting consumed. It's easy to think about it, but, like, everything gets consumed. Everything breaks down and gets consumed by something, and then gets eaten up and up and up and up. And just think about it, like, constantly throughout our lives, we are also adding to the circle with the things that come off of us. And then eventually when we finally go down, we can't do that anymore, but we give at least one last big meal to everything. Even ashes. Ashes get consumed too. Everything gets consumed. Like, when people get cremated and get tossed into the ocean, that's all getting eaten by something eventually. And then so on and so forth. Like, there are the people who... Wow, I'm getting really metaphysical here. There are people who are like... They have, like, two different ideas of immortality. That is, all cell... Like, atoms are forever, like they just change their form. Like, in my body, everything I eat, that gets broken down into other things and becomes cells and all these other things, of course. So, all these things were other things before. Like, whatever cell in my, whatever atoms in my body, there are atoms that were part of a tree, part of a planet, part of this, part of that, part of all these things. And so the idea is that we are immortal because our atoms are immortal. It's like, sure, but like our composition isn't immortal. The composition of our atoms isn't immortal. Like, eventually it changes, and you could say that we are constantly mutable, and we are always living and dying because our atoms are constantly changing, I guess you could say. And then eventually we fully die. And or also just continue to live as our atoms go and become part of other things. And so sure, we never die, or we are always in a constant state of death. However you want to take that. The other one is light. Like, at all times, everything is reflecting light. And so our image, the light image of us at every moment is being reflected and going on and off to somewhere. No longer observable, but is moving on. And so we are constantly immortal in that way. And it's just like, okay, that's curious. Okay, sure, Vsauce. It's either Vsauce or Veritasium. One of them made that argument, like, okay, that's curious. I guess that's a way to cope. A way to cope with our mortality. I'm going long here. I don't know why. You know why? Because that's where my head's at. These vlogs are venting, right? So, honest good to goodness truth, despite the fact I have attempted suicide, I'm glad I'm alive, and I really wish I don't die ever. I would like to be immortal. I would like to never die. Why? Because I love experiencing things. I want to see Kirby forever. Like, just imagine people were big fans of Mickey. Mickey is, of course, so freaking old. No one, maybe there's like one guy right now who's been around for the entirety of Mickey. I think Mickey's like 100 years. I don't know. Like, I would love to see just everything Kirby. Like, the entire legacy of Kirby. Like, it's just a brand that I feel like will never be gone. Like, in one form, I keep saying like, in one form or another, it'll just keep going. Like, Hal's gonna keep going. The only way Kirby's going away is some hubristic move. I don't see how people would stop loving Kirby. That or, the earth just burns. Same thing with Mario, same thing with a lot of icons. Like, the only reason why we haven't seen anything with certain games is just no one wants to make them, I suppose. Like, well, you know, thinking like F-Zero, we haven't seen Captain Falcon forever. But the thing is Kirby is the lifeblood of a company. And as long as that company doesn't make any mistakes, Kirby's going to keep happening. The only way, and even then, even if HAL somehow gets hubristic and fails, they're going to have to sell the IP. And then Nintendo will make Kirby games. It would require Nintendo to get hubristic and fail. But I just feel like you're going to constantly have toys or something where Kirby will just keep existing. And on some level, I would love to see just the entirety of the Kirby legacy. There's like how far it goes. And of course, not just that, but just seeing how humanity goes and how far can we take it? Can we get to space? Can we thrive in space? Things like that. Are we alone? Will we eventually find others? We only exist for a small blip of history. Just, there's no way other people just weren't excited and hoping to see what comes next. Like Egyptian times. Like, Egypt was around for freaking thousands of years. Like, there's people who just in the middle of that whole thing, they're like, man, we've made so much progress. I'd love to see how much more progress we could make. And they never got to see. They went out eventually. I would like to see how far America can go. Will it become a lasting thing, or will we eventually implode? Like, how far, like, because Britain's been around for freaking ever. But eventually things end, like the Roman Empire eventually ended, Egypt eventually ended, things eventually end. I would be curious to see, how does history see us thousands of years later? Or are we just completely forgotten? Like Mesopotamia and all the things that happened then, like, we only know so much. I'd like to know just how far can we take technology? How far can we take so many concepts? What is art like 50 years from now? What like renaissances happen? Like, I honest to goodness don't want to die. I want to see everything. I want to experience everything. Like, you know how many, I keep saying, like, how many lifetimes would it take to master everything? To dabble in everything. Not master, but dabble. Be like, uh, I want to try out, like, cooking French. Like, I'm saying, like, too much. Let's try French cuisine. For a year. Let's see how far I could go with French cuisine. For a year, how far could I go with how far could I go with German food? How far could I go with just these different cultures? And then same thing with just art styles and music and what could I do in these different realms if I lived forever? You know what happened though? I would just, instead just hang out doing whatever. Never. This is the argument is immortality would lead to no growth. In that, eventually you're just like, I'll just play League of Legends for the 12,000th bajillionth time, which can happen. But I also like to think at some point, you would be I want to do a thing. I want to try a thing. Sure, it took me 100 years to stop playing League of Legends, but finally I'm done playing League of Legends, and now I want to try different instruments. I just want to experience everything, And I won't be able to. It's a tragedy for all humans. We can't. We can only experience so much. We can only see so much, and that is again. That is the argument that is made in fantasy is that human life is so short, which is why humans are so crazy and they innovate so much. Like because the whole thing is like the elves just at some point just stop progressing because they're so damn old and they live so long. Like they don't need to progress all that much in technology, whereas humans constantly progressing in technology because they don't last that long. It's very interesting, that idea in high fantasy, or in fantasy in general. I mean, but I just like to be here forever. I would also like my my friends to be around forever too, because it would be pretty lonely to do it alone. There is the theory of just everyone is immortal in their own reality, like they just keep going and going and going, where they end up just being the oldest thing because you can't observe your own death. And that's such a curious concept. Where every time you do die, you just dimension jump to a reality where you have not died. That's such a wild one, and it's a scary one in its own way, if that's how it works. Physics is wild in their ideas of things like that. Physics is really wild with that. Oh, great. Now my head's effed up. I was doing good for a moment. Oh my god. Existential crisis, existential crisis. Okay. Gonna stop thinking about that. I'm gonna go have dinner and try to not think about it for, 2 hours, because bedtime's in 2 hours, and that's when the existential crisis is gonna kick in. Yay!